This week on Jerusalem Dateline, the latest on the U.S. election. What impact will it have on Israel and the Middle East? Plus, a frontline report from the Armenian-Azerbaijan war. It's been going on for weeks, and thousands are seeking shelter from the conflict. And how do Bahrainis feel about the Abraham Accords and their new relationship with the Jewish state? All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. Days after the U.S. presidential election, the results are still uncertain. Will President Trump be reelected, or will former U.S. Vice President Joe Biden take over the Oval Office? Here's the latest on the U.S. presidential election.
As more ballots are added up in battleground states, the margins are going down. In his first press conference since election night, President Trump maintained he's won.
If you count the legal votes, I easily win.
Critics call Trump's claim baseless and unfounded. However, instances of voter fraud are beginning to be reported. The Republican Party in Nevada announced Thursday evening that it has sent a criminal referral to Attorney General William Barr with allegations of more than 3,000 cases of voter fraud, and tweeting that they expect that number to grow substantially, claiming thousands of individuals have been identified who cast ballots after moving out of the state. In Pennsylvania, where Joe Biden is cutting into the president's lead, an appellate court judge cleared the way for the Trump campaign to more closely observe the Philadelphia County Board of Elections as they count mail-in ballots. But Trump observers say they're being stopped from seeing what's going on. Trump campaign senior advisor Corey Lewandowski tweeted out a video showing a city attorney still preventing them from getting within 6 feet of election workers.
This makes it look like a kangaroo court. We deserve better, and we're not leaving till we witness every single vote that transpires in here.
In Georgia, with 99% of the ballots in, Biden pulled ahead early this morning by just a little over 900 votes. The Trump campaign now likely to request a recount considering the razor-thin margin. And while the president is steadily gaining ground on Biden in Arizona, the results won't be known in either North Carolina or Nevada for days yet. Neither state likely to share their final election results until next week. Former Vice President Biden urged patience in a short appearance Thursday.
We have no doubt that when the count is finished, Senator Harris and I will be declared the winners. So I ask everyone to stay calm, all the people to stay calm. The process is working.
Finally, it's not just the White House at stake. Whether or not Republicans maintain control of the Senate could come down to the races in North Carolina and Georgia. Both states are still extremely tight, and Georgia has 2 Senate seats up for grabs this year, with one or possibly both of them going to a runoff on January 5th. So it's possible that we may not know which party controls the Senate until early next year. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
We discuss the aftermath of the U.S. presidential election and what impact it will have on Israel and the Middle East with CBN senior editor John Waggy in our Jerusalem studio. John, great to be with you on Jerusalem Dateline. You've been doing a lot of analysis on the election right now. Talk about voter fraud. And a lot of people, and this is seen around the world, a lot of people may think of voter fraud of a third world country or a dictatorship, but not necessarily the United States. Is that really a possibility?
It certainly is a possibility, Chris. And in fact, the president has tweeted out that the voter fraud is going to be the scandal of our times, is what he called it. And the administration has lawsuits out in at least 5 different states, and there may be a 6th before it's all over, as this counting comes down to an end, but is being dragged out. It's something that's it's unsettling for people, and Certainly the administration warned about it for months ahead of time, and legally they seem to be prepared for it. They have a team in place, and just today Nevada seems to be another place that's going to see a lawsuit. So you know, it's a serious issue.
Right. You know, John, we've done stories on this, but you know, between a potential President Biden and a President Trump, diametrically opposed views on the Middle East, what impact could a Trump administration or a potential Joseph Biden administration have on Israel and the Middle East?
Yeah, this is one of the areas of the world, Chris, where the contrast is so stark, because President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu have launched this diplomatic initiative that's really transforming the Middle East with all the agreements with the Gulf states and now nations in Africa and Malawi getting ready to move its embassy to Jerusalem after the United States led with that with President Trump. I mean, this is a course on which they've been embarking for 3 years now, and to change that in midstream, remember, if there is a Biden administration, his administration is going to be under intense pressure to ratchet up the hostility toward Israel, certainly by his left flank. Now, I know there are Israelis who are saying, you know, they know Joe Biden from the past and everything. He's a friend of Israel and all of that. But when you get down to policy, that policy is likely to be dictated by Biden's left flank. And so the stakes are really high for Israel and for all these nations that have embarked on this new course in the Middle East.
And talk to us, too, about the potential of an Iranian nuclear deal being renewed by a Biden administration.
Well, that's another huge one, because Biden has promised it more than once that that's what they will do. They will re-enter and resubmit to that agreement. And of course, the sanctions on Iran have been having devastating consequences. The world has kind of faced up to the fact for the last 3 years that the Iran deal is over and done with. And now Biden promises to bring it back, which means the rise of globalism, the rise of return to Palestinian talks. I mean, I think you would have all of that in a Biden administration. So once again, the contrast is extremely stark.
There's so many people praying not only for the election, but post-election right now. Talk about the spiritual dimension of what's going on right now.
Yeah, you know, Chris, everybody in the United States has been talking about the demographics of, you know, the African Americans, Hispanic vote, women's vote. One group that hasn't really been heard from is the demographic is intercessors. And intercessors are praying and mobilizing like I've never seen before on an issue. They are praying around the world. They're praying for Israel. They know that Israel is central to the Lord's plans for this entire earth, not just the United States and not just Israel. And so there are all kinds of prayer efforts going forth on social media and in rooms, just people's homes and places, and in churches. So I expect that effort will not let up as the voting is counted and we see the difficulties that are you know, being presented. And so, you know, it's almost a cliche, but it is Scripture. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. That's an extremely important thing, and that's what the watchmen on the walls are doing. That this issue will be settled by the laws of the land, that the policies that will further the Lord's plans for Israel and the Middle East will take precedence over everything else.
Well, John, great to be with you. Thanks for the political analysis, geopolitics, as well as the spiritual angle that is so important. And I would recommend all the people around the world and the United States, as John recommended, pray for the peace of Jerusalem throughout this time. Thanks so much,
Chris.
John.
Thank you.
Up next, CBN's Chuck Holton files this exclusive report from the front lines of the Armenian-Azerbaijan war. While the attention of the world has been focused on the U.S. presidential election, a war between Armenia and Azerbaijan has been raging. Chuck Holton brings us this exclusive report from the front lines of the conflict.
If you want to know what a war crime looks like, this is it. This is an Azeri missile that landed on this hospital just today. This wing of the hospital was just about ready to open, and it's not near any military targets, so it's not like it was an accident. It is very clear the military of Azerbaijan is targeting civilian infrastructure.
Both sides accuse the other of atrocities in this conflict, but only Azerbaijan is trying to take land it doesn't control. The Armenians, on the other hand, see this as an existential threat.
More than 99% of the people that live in this region are ethnic Armenians, and they make up one of the oldest Christian communities in the world.
We are here. That's our historical land. We want to live here, and we want to have our rights. We want to know our history. We want to have open churches. We want to pray.
I'm in the capital of the Nagorno-Karabakh region of Armenia called Artsakh, or this is the city of Stepanakert. Behind me you can see the effects of the Azeri bombardment that has been hitting this city since September 27th. Of the 150,000 people who live in this area, most of them have already had to flee, but there are still tens of thousands of people that are staying here, sleeping in their cellars, in their basements, and listening to the daily barrage of random artillery that's falling on this city.
On September 27, when we woke up, we heard the loud sounds of explosions. We saw the bursts, the smoke. We understood what's going on, and my dad told us to take all of our things and to go to his shop's underground cellar.
This is Rosa. She's 83, and she was sleeping in that room right behind me when this bomb flattened her house. This was a very large bomb, and this is not near any military objective or anything. It's just random bombing of civilian areas by Azerbaijan, supported by Turkey.
Rosa says the fact that she survived is nothing short of a miracle. Meanwhile, President Erdogan of Turkey has sent military assets to help Azerbaijan as this conflict has become a power struggle between regional superpowers. Armenia has limited support from Russia, but the Armenian military is still outnumbered 5-1.
It's just after noon, and the air raid siren is going off in the distance. There have been just random artillery shells falling sort of all around this hotel. One just landed about a quarter mile that direction, and another one just a minute ago landed right over this way. But this is what the people of Stepanakert are having to deal with literally every day without warning. So you could be walking down the street, and if one of those shells lands anywhere near you, it's game over.
And as the violence continues to intensify, Armenians are vowing to fight to the bitter end and are putting their faith in God. From the Republic of Artsakh, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Up next, Julie Stahl examines how the people of Bahrain are feeling about their new relationship with the Jewish state. 138 nations of the UN voted to approve the Temple Mount solely as an Islamic holy site while ignoring its Jewish roots. Israel's ambassador to the UN said the UN General Assembly was detached from reality, but that a growing number of nations are acknowledging that Jerusalem is the undeniable capital of the Jewish people and the Jewish state. The vote comes while the United States is encouraging more nations to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and move their embassies there. Malawi is the latest country to signal it will move its embassy. Malawi's foreign minister met on November 5th with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So far, only the United States and Guatemala have moved their embassies to Jerusalem. The representative of the Palestinian Authority said the resolution was fully in line with international law. One encouraging note for Israel is that the number of countries that supported the text dropped from 154 to 138 from last year, a sign of growing recognition of Israel's claim to its ancient capital. The UN vote comes with the backdrop of the Abraham Accords, where the UAE, Bahrain, and Sudan have normalized relations with Israel. Israelis seem quite excited about the new relationship with the UAE and Bahrain, But how do the people in Bahrain feel? Julie Stahl talked with the head of the Bahraini Journalists Association to find out.
Akhtia Al-Saeed, welcome to Jerusalem Dateline.
Shalom, Julie, and shalom to everyone in the studio and everyone in Jerusalem and the world.
You're joining us from Bahrain today. You're the head of the Bahraini Journalists Association. So what do you think about the Abraham Accords and about your country, Bahrain, joining them?
I can't stop expressing how excited I am. And these agreements, if they reflect anything, they reflect the will of both countries to start a new era of relationships. And so far we have seen the steps taken after the official signing of the agreements. And finally, we can have relations with each other. And this is history in simple words.
Why do you think this was the time for this?
Well, Julie, if we look at Bahrain, we have seen that during the past decade, there have been a lot of steps being taken that have reflected the will of the country, the state, to have relations with Israel. When we officially saw Bahrain's prime minister with Israeli officials, when we saw them shaking hands, when we saw exchange in visits, in economic events, today was the right time to do it. Because why do you have to wait longer when you have established ties and now you can officially announce these ties?
Are most Bahrainis satisfied with this? Are they happy? Are there any that are opposed to this?
When I look at the parliament that represents the people of Bahrain, and there are 40 members, have approved and have been happy about the peace agreement. When I find hundreds of columns written in Bahrain's newspapers supporting the peace agreement, this gives me a feeling that people are happy.
You represent about 600 journalists, I understand, as head of the Bahraini Journalists Association. Some of them have been threatened, I understood, and I just wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
I think these threats have made people feel awkward, not safe. I have been threatened on many occasions on social media and through Palestinian syndicates, so-called journalist syndicates. And this threat continues. A Washington-based newspaper, I don't know run by who, just published an article threatening me again and defaming my image. But that doesn't stop me for one simple reason. If you believe in something, you have to know that there will be a cost to pay. If you want to stand where you are and not say what you believe in, then you cannot contribute to any change. I'm nobody to change this world, but I can have some contribution. So these threats are empty threats, and it will not stop us from what we believe in. It will not stop us from pursuing what we have decided to do. We have decided to be contributors towards peace.
Now, President Trump has been kind of the engine behind these deals. Have you ever met him?
Well, Julie, I was lucky because I did meet President Trump in 1999. I was part of a delegation of more than 20 Arab journalists on a program called the International Visitors Leadership Program. We were one day told that we can go and visit the man who supported this program. And while many decided to go shopping, I thought I don't want to miss any of the programs organized by the State Department. And when we went, we walked into the Trump building, and it was Donald Trump himself. This program had a huge impact on who I became. Because of that program, I got to sit on a table with an American family and celebrate Thanksgiving. It left a huge impact on me. This was 21 years ago. So thanks to men like Donald Trump, these programs were made possible. And I wish the American people would see and appreciate what this man has done. I think that we will continue to see big surprises in the region. He dedicated his term towards the people of the United States on the internal level, but he also dedicated his term to bringing peace in the region. What he succeeded in doing, no other US president has ever succeeded in doing. 2020 will end with 3 peace agreements with Arab countries within a matter of 3 months. And this is a huge achievement. But the American people will have to also realize that whatever President Trump has achieved on the foreign level is going to have a positive impact internally on the people of the United States.
Wow, great. Aktia Al-Said, thank you for joining us on Jerusalem Dateline.
Thank you, Julie, for your time. Thank you all for your time.
Coming up, how CBN Israel is helping Holocaust survivors during the COVID-19 pandemic. Shlomit is a single mother of 4 young children, ages 2, 4, 5, and 7, who has lost their job working with the elderly during the COVID-19 crisis in Israel. But CBN Israel has been helping her with food since losing her income.
Shlomit is a single mother of 4. She recently lost her job as a caretaker for the elderly due to the COVID-19 outbreak in Israel.
People are very scared of the virus, so they are taking care of their aging parents themselves. Now I have no work, no income, and no way to put bread on the table. I go to sleep with tears in my eyes, praying, please, Lord Jesus, just help us get through the next day. Help us to survive.
A friend put her in touch with CBN Israel. We take her food and other essentials like diapers for her toddler. We also give her gift cards to buy other necessities.
This help means everything to me and my children. We are experiencing God's love through you. I don't feel like I'm alone in this anymore. In spite of everything, I have hope.
Thanks to CBN Israel donors, Shlomit has the comfort of knowing her children have food to eat and that she has someone she can depend on during this crisis.
It fills my heart with joy, knowing that even in this pandemic, you didn't forget us in Israel. All I can say is a very big thank you.
Well, that's one good news story here in the Middle East in a time of both uncertainty and conflict. Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.